Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday night collaborative class. I'm so glad you're with us. And we're going to continue our study on the Gospel of John, which is one of my favorite Gospels. I got to tell you, there's so much profound things in there that are just getting me excited and getting me excited about teaching this and getting me excited about my own life a lot. So we're going to pick up right where Rachel left off last week. She did an amazing job. I loved listening to her teaching and it was just so like uplifting, and it got me really excited about today, about the things that I want to share with you. So we're digging right in. And let's recap real quick. So Jesus was with the Samaritans. There was the woman at the well, and then he with the Samaritans, and he went really well there. He had a really good time there. He had a really good time in Samaria. He was excited. He was on a spiritual high, and now he decides to go to Galilee. And let's pick up in verse 43. So we are in John 4:43. It says here, after the 2 days, he left for Galilee. So he's on his way to Galilee right now. And here's on 44. Here's something that every time I read it, it strikes me, because it's just like, for me, it's so I can't really understand it. But we'll dig into it. Now Jesus himself, this is 44, now Jesus himself had pointed out that a prophet has no honor in his own country. So I'm thinking with the mindset of, wow, there's Jesus and he's coming to my country, he's coming to my town, and I am so excited about that. I was like, I can't wait. I want to hear this. I want to be with him. And if that would be me. But we got to understand, it was different then. Back then, it was a lot of different people where they knew him, they knew who he is, that he is from he's from a town that's called Nazareth, and Nazareth was not really the best town. Just to be honest, Nazareth was kind of like the Taft of Galilee, so it was kind of like a little bit of backcountry, and there was even a saying, nothing good comes out of Nazareth, right? You probably have heard that before. So Jesus is on this really cool spiritual high. He was excited, and now he decides to go there, and he knew that a prophet has no honor in his own country. What does it mean? So we want to dig into this a little bit. In my understanding is like, I just refer to today's times, what we have today, right? Today we have when somebody goes out from his own hometown and goes into the big city, and why are people doing this? So for me, it is the idea of like, at home, people know you. They know you who you are, they know you what you're doing, they know you your faults and all of this. And basically you have to go out into the unknown, into a different place in order to gain respect and in order to build up your reputation and all this. And I think that is what it means here is like, if you have no honor, they know you. They know that when you grew up, they know who you are. They know your faults. They know, not Jesus had any faults, but here it is like the idea of, we know you. Are you really what you say who you are? We know you. So that's kind of like the interesting factor. And Jesus knew it. He went back into his home. My question is also, why would he go home if he's not honored there? I don't know if I would do that. I don't know if I would go back home if I'm not honored. But he said, I'm coming to my own people. I'm going to my own people. He's going into a place where he could be rejected. And he knew it. And I have a really cool Bible here. I have, it's a parallel Bible, and it has 4 different versions in there. It has the NIV, the NLT, the New King James, and the Message. And I love reading my Bible with like different message, with different in different versions. And I also have a Greek one. But this is really interesting here, because in the Message, which is more like it's more like loosely written, it's more like a story written Bible. It says it here in the same spot in 44. He says, it's interesting. He says, now Jesus knew well from experience that a prophet is not respected in the place he grew up. So he knew it. He knew it well. He expected it. So why did he go there? Let's go to 44, verse 44. Something really strange happens in 44 that it is so fun to read this and to think about this, because it's like this shift right there. I'm reading this out of the NIV because I think the NIV gives us here a very good understanding. When he arrived in Galilee, the Galileans welcomed him. They had seen all that he had done in Jerusalem at the Passover festival, for they also had been there. So, wait a second. He's supposed to be rejected, right? He's supposed to be, hey, our own prophet is not welcome. But for some reason, these guys are welcome him. However, I figured something out. They welcomed him for the wrong reason. They heard what he can do. It says it right here. They had seen all he has done in Jerusalem at the Passover festival. So they wanted to see Jesus coming in and saying, hey, I'm going to do all these miracles. And it was kind of like the circus comes to town. People get excited because something new comes, and some healer comes here, and we want to see him. And as soon as they heard that he comes into town, the people were all coming together and welcomed him and saying, hey, we want to see your miracles. We want to see what you're doing. It's kind of like the circus comes to town. It's fascinating for me that we're doing the same thing sometimes. I mean, these people here, they didn't realize who is coming to town. They didn't realize that the Son of God is coming to town. They didn't get that. All they wanted to see is the miracles. All they wanted to see is all this fun stuff is coming. They didn't realize that this is your escape. This is your escape of death one day. And how could they? But he comes in and why here's the reason why he chose to come into this town. Because he knew it. It wasn't his plan. It wasn't his plan to come in and say, hey, I'm here for you. It's fascinating for me. It's fascinating. So he goes into town. People are probably surrounded him. And let's read in 46 here. As he traveled to Galilee, he came to Cana. Cana is a town where Jesus performed his first miracle. And it says it here, where he had turned the water into wine. So this was the time when they were at this wedding, and they ran out of wine, and Jesus' mom said, hey, they ran out of wine, we need your help. And he basically said at that point, he said, it's not my time yet. But then he prayed about it, and he did it. And he turned water into wine. So this was his first miracle he did. And this was on a wedding. So in a wedding there, it's not just like a wedding where there's just a few people, or like there's the whole town comes together. When there's weddings, the whole town comes together and they have a big party. So the whole town saw in Cana, saw this miracle. So they knew about him. They knew that he's a miracle worker. They knew that he's something different than them, but they still didn't realize who he really is. They still didn't realize he's the Son of God, which is very fascinating. So he comes into this town, and there was a certain royal official whose son lay sick in Capernaum. So let me tell you about this official. This official was a really high up at Herod's palace. I mean, he was a dude, right? He was a manager. He was high up. He was a very influential guy, probably rich, had probably a big house. Probably wouldn't even care much if his son wouldn't be sick, right? He would be probably like, yeah, man, this Jesus comes to town, okay, you know. He would be probably maybe even against it, because everything that was against or put Herod in danger. And in danger, I don't mean physically, but also like with the people, you know. It could be a riot. It could be, it undermined his authority, stuff like that. So he will probably be against that. Jesus comes in and makes this big party there, not party, but big gathering there. And so, but his son is sick. And so he heard about this guy who's a miracle worker. He says, I need to see this guy. So in 47 says, when this man heard that Jesus had arrived in Galilee from Judea, he went to him and begged him to come and heal his son, who was close to death. So this guy just goes up and begs Jesus. This is a guy who is rich. This is a guy who probably never cared. But he asks him, he says, my son is sick. He was desperate. He was really, really desperate. I have 5 kids. And it's a miracle you don't hear them right now in my living room. But my wife was so gracious and took them to play right now. But I have 5 kids. And if one of these 5 kids would be sick or something happened to them, I would do whatever I could to help and save them. So I can understand his drive. I can understand what was in his heart. He said, I want to save my son. I need to go to this guy, Jesus, and save my son. I need to have this, it doesn't matter who I am. It doesn't matter where I'm coming from. I mean, look at us right now. We're struggling with this coronavirus right now, right? And it doesn't hold from anybody. Like it does, it gets celebrities sick, it gets big authority officials sick, it gets a lot of people sick. It doesn't hold or it doesn't stop in front of anybody. People getting sick, right? So going back to this official, even he's rich, even he's powerful, even that, but he has a son who is dying. Nothing stops in front of him. Death doesn't stop. So he's desperate. He's desperate to save his son. And like I said, my kids, I would do whatever I can. I mean, it just breaks my heart to read about this. However, so he says he begged him to come with him and heal his son, who was close to death. He begged him to come with him. He said, Jesus, please come with me and heal my son. And in the next verse, there's something that is really... I read this passage many, many times, and I I always thought a little bit Jesus was a little bit like harsh, a little bit, and was like, hey, this guy is begging for his son's life, and Jesus says here's something, and let's read what he says. He says, unless you people seen signs and wonders, Jesus told him, you will never believe. It always seemed a little bit harsh to me because I was thinking, when I'm a grieving father that his son is dying and I want some help from him, why is he getting basically in my face with this? And I never realized that Jesus didn't talk really to him. Because when this guy came up to him, there was probably hundreds of people standing around Jesus and waiting for him to say, oh yeah, I'm performing this miracle. Circus, right? But no. He just didn't talk to the dead. He talked to everybody around him. And maybe a little bit to the dead, but mostly to the people around him. And he says, unless you people see signs and wonders, you will never believe. And when I read this, it struck me, when I prepared for this message, it struck me really, really in a way that it's kind of funny. I don't even know how to say this, but I think sometimes in my life I need to see things that God does to really, oh yeah, this is not that I believe that God exists, but that there's still miracles, there's still things. And it just hit me because it's like, I should follow God without seeing any of this. I should follow God with my heart and saying, you know what, Jesus, you do what you do. You do your miracle when you do it. You help people when you're ready for it, when it's in your plan, and I should just follow your plan. And that is what he says here is, he says, unless you people seen signs and wonders, you will never believe. And it just really, really hit me. And I have to say, it's like, it just changed a little bit my thinking. And I was like, wait, I need to follow God, whatever happens, you know. If one of my kids gets, God forbid, really, really sick and dies, I need to praise him. I still need to follow him. I still need to be a part of his plan. I can't get off his plan because something happened, because it is in his will. I need to be in his will. Jesus, I'm fast forwarding here a little bit. Jesus on the cross said to God, your will be done. He says, not on the cross, in the garden, he says, God, please take the cup from me, but your will, if not, your will be done. So it is God's will that will be done. And I don't have to see wonders and signs. I just have to believe. And reading this, it really, really hit me. So in 49, the royal official said, sir, come down before my child dies. So he still doesn't get it. And it's hard sometimes to get this when you're in this desperate situation that it doesn't matter if it is. It doesn't even have to be as severe that a kid is dying. It can be something else right now. Like, for example, what we have right now is people losing their jobs, people losing money, people getting sick and all this. And in that moment, it's just like we want God to take it away immediately, and we want God to do it on our terms, and we want God to just have it done. But it's not up to us. It's his will. His will. It's his plan. It's his idea. And when Jesus came to town, he already knew about this plan. He already knew what he will do there. He didn't come to be like, yeah, he's so cool and he's the miracle worker. No, he came because he had a mission. He had a mission to show the people who he really is. That he's not a showboat, that he's not a circus act, but that he is somebody who wants to go and love people, and that he has a plan for everybody, and that he wants to show people that, hey, believe in me, and your life will go according to my plan. That is so powerful. This whole passage here is so powerful because it really shows us how we are perceiving Christ, how we are thinking about Christ, how our relationship is to Christ. It's all in this passage. So this guy says, please, sir, come down before my child dies. And it's in the message, I'm going to jump over to the message. It says, but the court official wouldn't put off. Come down. It's life or death for my son. It's life or death. I am so desperate right now, and you don't want to come with me. So, get this. Jesus says right in 50, go, your son will live. Your son will be alive. Your son will survive this. So this guy is desperate. This guy wants Jesus to come. He only knew that Jesus probably has to touch somebody, has to be there. I have to see it. I cannot just imagine it. I have to see it. But Jesus says, go. Your son will live. He was still desperate, I think. But then something switched in his brain. And I like how the NIV says it here. The man took Jesus at his word and departed. After Jesus said that, go, your son will live, your son will be alive. The guy just said, all right, there's nothing else I can do, but you know what? I will believe you. I will take your word. If you're really who you are, if you really the guy you say you are, I will take you by your word. And I will go home and check on my son. It's so cool. It says it in the message, says Jesus simply replied, go home, your son lives. The man believed the bare word Jesus spoke and headed home. The bare word. In this moment, his whole thinking changed. And it doesn't say here what it was. It doesn't say what it was, but I think he saw in that moment that who Jesus really is. He saw that he was the Son of God. He saw that he was so powerful that he doesn't have to be there. It changed his whole thinking about Jesus in that moment. That whole passage is basically getting somebody to faith. This whole passage is about seeing who Jesus really is. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. I love this. In 51, he says, while he was still on the way, his servant met him with the news that his boy was living. He didn't even have to go home. His servant ran out. His son was healed. His probably played already in the backyard. And his servant ran him to him and had, hey, your son is healed. It's done. He's good. I mean, just to have the comparison, the message. On his way back, his servant intercepted him and announced, your son lives. Intercepted him. He didn't even let him get into the house. They were so excited about it. He says it in 52. When he inquired as to time when his son got better, they said to him, yesterday at 1 in the afternoon, his fever left him. This was exactly the time where he talked to Jesus, at 1. And this is so fascinating. I'm going to read you this in the message because it's a little bit more clear here. He asked them what time he began to get better. They said the fever broke yesterday afternoon at 1 o'clock. And here it is. The father knew that was the very moment Jesus had said, your son lives. So he is with Jesus. Jesus tells him that. He realizes it, that Jesus is the Son of God. He goes home. He asks him, and at 1 o'clock, his son got better. That's the same moment that Jesus said it. There is no doubt in your mind that there was a big miracle in this moment. There was something happening in this moment that nobody can explain. Nobody can take this away. This man is something special. It's fascinating. It's very fascinating. So, in 53, here says, then the father realized that this was the exact time when Jesus said to him, your son will live. So he and his whole household believed. He didn't have to see it. He didn't have to be there. He didn't have to see that Jesus touched him. He healed him. He healed him not being there. I love the part of healing. I'm a big fan of the part of healing. And it's so cool because my two passages or my two parts of this study right now are about healing. So next week we're going to go into Jesus went to Jerusalem in the Jewish festival, and there was a lot going on there and a lot of cool stuff coming. There was the healing at the pool and all this. But for me, healing is a very, very, I believe, so strong in healing. And healing is not just physically, but it's all healing of the heart. It's healing in a way that we cannot imagine sometimes. And it's a healing that, let me tell you a story. I was just talking to somebody, and we were talking about drug addiction. And unfortunately, my wife's brother-in-law, my brother-in-law, my wife's brother, he died on a drug overdose, and I was praying about it a lot, but there was a lot going on in his life that didn't heal him. So I'm very close to I'm very close to people who are drug addicts because of my brother-in-law. And I try to understand them. I try to help them, and I try to be a ear for them. So somebody who recently I recently talked to he was a drug addict for about 20 years. It's a guy that's almost my age, and he is over 20 years. He was a drug addict. He did everything you can imagine. And we're talking about drugs. We're talking about why was he taking the drugs? And he said it started out with he was a musician. He is like rock and roll life living, it's like the rock star life, and I started out doing that, and then I got addicted, and then alcohol came in, and alcohol was always there, and then other stuff came in, and he did to the hardest drug you can't even imagine, or he went up to really big things. And we're talking about how he felt in these moments. And he said, when I was on the high for a short amount of time, I was good. But then I felt sick. I was sick. I was sick the rest of it. I was sick most of the 20 years. The high was short, and then the sickness was there. And we're talking about, so this guy now he's off drugs. He's off drugs for about, I think he said 8 years now? Probably 8 to 10 years, something like that. I totally forgot. And he said, and I said, so what got you off the drugs? He said, a prayer. And I was like, what? He said, a healing prayer. He said, I went to a church. I've never been my whole life in church. I didn't believe in God. This was not in my books. But this friend of mine, I was really on the bottom. I lost about everything I had. I had no money anymore. I was about to get kicked out of my place. And he before had millions of dollars, I guess. He lived in a really rich, nice house. And he said, this guy took me and he dragged me to church. He dragged me to one of these churches where they pray for healing. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening and I get already excited about it. And he tells the story. He says, I walk in, I'm so done with life. I'm like on, they call it cold, I think they call it cold turkey when they're like off the drugs. And so he was on this down and he couldn't even like think, and he was like pain everywhere in his body, and he needed the next shot of his next drug. And he said, this pastor came up to me and he said, Jesus knows your heart. Jesus knows who you are. He has a plan for you and he will heal you. He prayed for him and he said, that moment I felt hot in my body. My whole body felt hot. Not as hot like from like, he said, I had a hot when I was high. It was 10 times more. I felt like in the moment, everything that pain, everything that the drugs, everything was stripped out in that moment. And I felt from 1 second to the other better. And I sat there with him, and my eyes got wide open, and I sat when he told me that story, and I tears came into my eyes, and I got excited, and he said, and then from that moment on, I was healed. I was healed from the drugs. I was healed from that. And for me, this was Jesus is. He said, I felt Jesus coming down on me, taking this out, ripping this drugs out, ripping this addiction out of me from one day on the other. I didn't even have to go to rehab, he said. I didn't go to rehab. And from one day on the other, I was healed. It just blew my mind. To be honest, it blew my mind. I was excited. I was crying. I was crying with him. We were sitting there. We were praying. We were praising God. And it was just an amazing story. Jesus is healing, is still healing. He doesn't have to come down. He doesn't have to be in the room physically putting his hands on and healing. That's what this passage tells us, is he is healing. He's still there. And sometimes maybe not the way in the moment where we wanted it. But he says that unless you people see signs and wonders, you will never believe. We need to start believing. That passage tells us that, guys, I don't have to see it to believe that I'm there, that I'm in this room right now, in my living room. He's here. I love that. Your son will live. So he and his whole household believed. Was there a miracle? Yes. Was my friend a miracle? Yes. But he started believing. My friend now, he's serving God. He's worship. He's doing worship. He's a worship leader. He quit his whole lifestyle. He almost lost his house. He sold the house. He paid back what he owed people. He took a lot of people. He actually still like he borrowed some money from people. He pays him all back. He paid him all back. And now he's working as a worship leader, and he's working for God because God had a plan for him. God healed him from one and the other day. Jesus made him believe. A guy that never went to church his whole life. His parents were full-on blown atheists. He was a full-blown atheist. From one minute of the other, Jesus healed him. That's the story right here. It is so fascinating. It says it in 54. This was the second sign Jesus performed after coming to Judea, from Judea to Galilee. So this was the second time. Guys, I'm so glad we could go through this passage today. This is really one of my favorite passages in John because it's so profound. It's so us. It so creates a thinking in us that wait, Jesus is here. He's here. Even he's not physically in the room, he's here. He still heals. He's still with us. He loves us. He loves us more than anything. When he says this, you guys, unless you've seen signs and wonder, you will never believe. I think he wanted, when he came into town, he knew he will change this official's life. He will change his family's life. He will change the whole town's life. Because they've seen something they haven't seen before. Jesus is not a showboat. Is not a circus act. He's the real deal. He's coming. He doesn't care about a big, like, oh yeah, come on, I'm healing you. He comes in and says, go home. Your son is healed. Doesn't have to prove anything to anybody. Doesn't have to prove to the people around him. The only thing he had to say is, guys, you need to believe. You need to believe without seeing because I'm here. I can do this. It is so cool. It is so fascinating. So I'm so thankful that you joined me today in this. And I'm going to pick up in chapter 5 next week. So we're going to do the same thing next week. And it's going to be very interesting when we get into chapter 5, and it's a continuous on this. So I'm so excited. I want to pray. I want to pray right now for this chapter, but I also want to pray for us that we can see Jesus who he really is, and in every day in our lives, when we go out there, when we do studies like this, even when we're just working in the backyard. I mean, I walked out yesterday in my backyard, and I have a really, really beautiful backyard, and I'm so blessed with it, and especially right now when we're all home, and I looked around and I can see the mountains, and I'm like, just like, God, I see you in every mountain, in every tree, in every flower, in every orange of my orange tree in my backyard. I can see you. I can see your wonder. I can see your miracles. I see you in this. And that is what this chapter is all about. This chapter is about that we see God who he really is. That we see Jesus who he really is. And then we don't have to see Jesus performing the miracle, because the miracle still happens, even he's not here on earth in physical form, but he's here in spiritual form with us in every day of our lives. So let's pray about this, and yeah, let's pray. Father God, I just want to thank you for your miracles. I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you for sending Jesus down to earth. I just want to thank you for this great passage in the Bible, God. That's one of my favorite passages because it lets us see who you are. It lets us see who Jesus is. That he wasn't out for fame, but he was out for us, for helping us, for loving us, for healing us. And Jesus, we're just so excited about this study, God, and what we learn more about you and how we can put the study into our lives, God. How we can put the Gospel of John into our daily lives, with our kids, with the situations we are in right now. Because now we need a lot of healing, not just physically, but emotionally, God. So we just pray, God, that you will be with us every day, God, and will show people that you're there, that they will be healed, and that everything goes according to your plan, that your will be done, not ours. So Father, we thank you for this study. I want to thank you for all the teachers in this study, and I'm just so excited about next week when we talk more about healing, God. So Father, I just lift up everybody who joined us in the study, and everybody in this valley, and everybody in this world, God, that they realize that you're there in this situation right now, and even when this is all over, God, that you're still there and guide us and love us and want the best for us, God. So Father, we thank you, and we thank you for this beautiful day and for this beautiful place we live. In your Son's name I pray. Amen. All right, everybody. I'm going to see you next week. Have a beautiful week, and thank you so much for joining. And yeah, see you next week. Bye-bye.